Hey friends, we're going to talk about Thymosin Alpha-1. It's a freaking rockstar peptide. So Thymosin Alpha-1 is a synthetic version of a naturally occurring peptide that comes from the thymus gland. And it's a piece of a protein. It's a 28 amino acid peptide produced by the thymus gland. And its primary role is in immune modulation and infection resistance. Production of thymosin alpha-1 decreases with age, and it impacts immune health. So giving thymosin alpha-1 peptide supplements that declining thymic production of it, which supports immune resilience. So let me pop up a free guide for you. It's the Set Your Pet Up for Success with Peptides. And it's a checklist that you can use to assess the areas that you can support your pet in that will help their immune system. So this is a free checklist. So go ahead and scan the QR code if you'd like and check it out. So what exactly is Thymosin Alpha-1 and what does it do? It's pretty amazing. Let me pull this down. And it really caught my eye. So Thymosin Alpha-1 boosts the production and activity of T cells. So T cells like cytotoxic T cells and regulatory T cells, these are fundamental for adaptive immunity. So essentially, Thymosin Alpha-1 enhances the immune system's ability to recognize and destroy pathogens. It's freaking amazing. Thymosin Alpha-1 improves the activity of dendritic cells. So dendritic cells, their job is to process pathogens like viruses and bacteria and fungus and present those antigens or those pieces of those pathogens to the regulatory T cells, which then trigger a targeted immune response. It's really amazing science. And maybe you don't want to know about the science, but it's pretty cool how it works. So by improving the dendritic cell function, where it presents the antigen to the immune system, Thymosin Alpha-1 enhances immune surveillance and allows the body to detect and respond to pathogens a lot more effectively. Thymosin Alpha-1 also modulates cytokine production, which you've probably heard about. So it balances the pro-inflammatory, so inflammation, and the anti-inflammatory processes. So it helps maintain immune resilience while controlling the excessive inflammation, which reduces the risk of tissue damage from chronic inflammatory conditions. Thymosin Alpha-1 also stimulates the production of antimicrobial peptides, or AMPs. So this directly targets and neutralizes pathogens. So like viruses and funguses or fungi and bacteria. And this action will enhance innate immunity. It's the first line of defense against microbes like bacteria and viruses and funguses, which essentially reduces the risk of infection. Thymosin Alpha-1, with this multi-pathway approach, it does all kinds of things in the immune system. This makes it so valuable for immune support in people and pets with compromised immunity, chronic infections, autoimmune disorders, and any kind of chronic inflammation. So overall, Thymosin Alpha-1 provides a balanced, supportive boost to the immune system. It improves resistance to infections, and it improves the rate of recovery. It causes a faster recovery time. It balances the immune response or the inflammatory response in these chronic inflammatory conditions, and it enhances immune resilience, especially during cancer therapies, for example. So when I learned about Thymosin alpha-1, this small molecule, I immediately thought about valley fever. My infection, my son's infection, and all the pets that get valley fever. So I looked into the research on its use with fungal infections because I was really interested in that. And, just to back up a little bit, valley fever is a systemic fungal infection. We get it by inhaling the spores that live in the dirt or the dust, and it lands in our lungs and causes an infection. If you have a good immune system, you don't get an infection. If you don't have a good immune system, or there's something else going on, or you just get a lot of it, then you get an infection. And the reason that Thymosin alpha-1 even enters this conversation is because with a fungal infection, the outcome depends on two things at once. It depends on the antifungal approach you're using, whether it's, the pharmaceuticals or any other antifungal like herbal antifungals, and the immune system's ability to mount a response that's strong enough to control the fungus. But the key is we don't want the immune system so chaotic that inflammation becomes part of the problem. So let's look at 3 research studies, and there's more, but let's just look at 3 research studies that I found that were kind of interesting. So the first one came out in 1994 in Clinical and Experimental Immunology, and it is called Combined Effect of Fluconazole and Thymosin alpha-1 on Systemic Candidiasis in Mice Immunosuppressed by Morphine Treatments. So candidiasis is a yeast-like fungus. And these mice were given morphine to cause immunosuppression. Poor mice. And first, they infected 2 groups of mice with the Candida albicans, the yeast-like fungus. And one group were like regular mice, and the other group were the ones that were immunosuppressed with the morphine. And then they treated all the mice with fluconazole. The normal mice recovered better, which is obvious, I would think. And then they took the mice that were immunocompromised with morphine and infected them with Candida albicans and gave half of them fluconazole, and the other half they gave fluconazole with Thymosin alpha-1. And the combined treatment prolonged these little immunocompromised mice's survival time and reduced their fungal burden in the kidneys. They also investigated the activity of these mice, the mice's immune cells, like the natural killer cells and the PMNs, which are polymorphonuclear leukocytes. That these are cells that gobble up the pathogens. So they looked at the activity between the groups of immunocompromised mice and found that when they combined the fluconazole with Thymosin alpha-1, the mice had increased immune response as they measured by recovery of the natural killer cell activity. And they also measured it with the intracellular killing of the Candida albicans organisms by the PMNs, the polymorphonuclear leukocytes that gobble up the fungus. So they concluded that the additive effect of Thymosin alpha-1 and fluconazole was due to direct antifungal action and activation of the immunocompetence or activation of the mice's immune system. Lots of interesting stuff out there. But, you know, with Candida, that's a really severe yeast-like fungus. And so when I see studies like that, I still think about valley fever and its usefulness there. The second study was in 2023, and this was published in the International Immunopharmacology Journal, and it's called COVID-19 and Beyond, Reassessing the Role of Thymosin Alpha-1 in Lung Infections. And this paper is a review paper. It's not a research paper. So they basically did a summary of all the research on Thymosin Alpha-1 in lung infections, including COVID-19 and fungal pneumonias. And all in all, they found that the data added up to providing a beneficial effect of Thymosin Alpha-1 against pneumonia from multiple different airborne pathogens. And they recommended the design of clinical trials testing Thymosin Alpha-1 for community-acquired or hospital-acquired pneumonia. So they reviewed all the research, and the research showed that the effects of Thymosin Alpha-1 were important enough and what do I want to say? Strong enough to then go on to do more research. So another study in 2025, so not that long ago, in Judicial Journal of Microbiology, it's called Effects of Adjunctive Thymosin Alpha-1 on Chronic Obstructive Pulmonary Disease Associated Invasive Pulmonary Aspergillosis. So this is another fungal infection that I feel like is very similar to valley fever in its severity and its unpredictability. It can be fatal, and it happens in animals and it happens in people. And this is another one that happens in all mammals, but also happens in birds. So chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, and you may know that as COPD, is a progressive airway disorder. It's inflammatory. So it's characterized by irreversible airway limitation, and it's worsened by infections, especially recurrent infections. And so this is a case control study, and they took 100 COPD patients with invasive pulmonary aspergillosis, so a fungal infection in the lungs, and they split them up into two groups. One group received voriconazole, which is one of the antifungal drugs. It's actually one of the newer ones. And so one group received the voriconazole alone, and the other received voriconazole with Thymosin Alpha-1 for 6 weeks. And they found that the group receiving voriconazole plus the Thymosin Alpha-1 showed a higher rate of treatment effectiveness. So they got better, easier, and they had significantly more fungal clearance. So they got better, had less fungus in their body. And in this study, they showed that the addition of Thymosin Alpha-1 enhanced the action of voriconazole and improved the patient's recovery, but also improved the patient's markers of inflammation, so the lab markers. So they not only looked at how the patients recovered, but they looked at their lab work. They pulled blood, and they looked at all the different inflammatory markers that, you know, before and during and after this treatment. So they concluded that adjunctive Thymosin Alpha-1 promotes immune recovery and fungal clearance in COPD-associated invasive pulmonary aspergillosis without increasing safety risks. And peptides in general have fabulous safety profiles. when they go into the body, they don't last long. They go in, they do their thing, and then they're gone. And they are synthetically produced, but they're modeled after a natural strand of amino acids. So they're extremely safe, which is another bonus, because even voriconazole is not safe. I mean, it trashes the liver, as all the antifungals do, to one degree or another. And the peptides have a whole lot less risks than even the antifungal drugs, which is cool. So when you zoom out, Thymosin Alpha-1 lands in a really, a modern category of medicine. So a tool that helps the immune system do its job with better coordination. And that's why Thymosin Alpha-1 is so interesting. So when we're dealing with fungal infections like valley fever, it really has a place there. So, tough infections, the big takeaway here is that Thymosin Alpha-1 is a newer, more progressive, forward-looking way to support the immune system. So instead of only focusing on attacking the fungus directly, like with the voriconazole or the fluconazole, it focuses on helping the body's defenses respond in a stronger, more organized way. And it's a shift from one medicine for one problem or one target or one disease to a broader strategy that also builds immune resilience. And this matters a lot, especially infections that are hard to control and can be life-threatening. And Thymosin Alpha-1 is not just a theory. It's a science-based tool that's been studied for a long time as a way to help the immune system handle these serious infections, fungal infections, viral infections, bacterial infections. It's really quite amazing. So if you're interested in discovering more about Thymosin Alpha-1 and other peptides for your pets, let me grab my Pet Peptide Project QR code. It's a mouthful, isn't it? So the Pet Peptide Project is starting soon. You can sign up now and get into my beta group at a reduced price. And we're going to go over peptides and their uses in different issues for pets, for dogs and cats. We'll go over like groups of different issues, musculoskeletal issues, cognitive issues, behavioral issues, organ issues like kidney, liver, heart, longevity. There are all kinds of peptides out there, and we don't know everything about every peptide for pets, but we know some things, and we're learning more every day. So there's more research coming out all the time. So you can jump in now, and you'll have lifetime access to the membership site. And so when I put in updates as we learn new things for pets on peptides, and dosing them and how to give them and all the regulatory stuff, you'll have access to that for life. All right, so there it is. All right, so Thymosin Alpha-1 is a powerhouse. It's a freaking awesome peptide. And with my work with valley fever and peptides, putting those two together, it just gets my mind going. So I'll see you next week. I'll be traveling next week from Idaho to Arizona via Washington and Oregon and California and down. So I'll be traveling, but I hope to see you next Saturday. All right, bye now.